Everybody, this is Sean Kapul back for part 2 of my mid-stakes PLO video review series. Not sure how long this series is going to end up being, but got some pretty good footage for today that I want to go over with you guys. And without further ado, let's just hop right to it. Both these hands are going to be hands we're going to be defending in our big blind to a single raise, even with this player opening from under the gun is certainly strong enough to be calling. Flop on the left, we have some blockers, but it's a pretty dynamic board. One that, while he may not connect super strongly with, usually will connect enough to continue. This is a pretty good card for our range, and also with him capping his own, the 5 clubs over here. So we bet near pot, and the 8 of clubs, while he does have some 10 queens, we have no real showdown value with our pair of 8s here. We certainly have more straights than he does, and so I think this is a good spot to be bluffing. He shows up with the bottom straight, which is unfortunate for us, but still think it's a good spot to be turning a pair into a bluff. Gonna open pretty marginal hand on the left hand side. Just pulling up what the guy showed down again. I'm gonna start by check calling the hand on the left. The reason being we don't get too many better hands to fold with a bet ourselves, and we have plenty of equity even against random Queen X and 4x, Queen 4 as well. We have some equity, so unfortunately on the Queen, when it pairs the turn, we just can't continue to any size bet, really. So we let our hand go in that spot. Pretty easy fold when the under the gun opens on the left hand table. This hand under the gun is pretty borderline. It's quite connected. The jack suit is helpful, not as helpful as the nut suit here, but I think it's just good enough to open under the gun. In a really tough lineup, I would be folding this hand though. 3-bet by the big blind rather. Sorry. Pretty standard call. This check doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, his 3-bet range should smash this board, and even when he doesn't, he holds a pretty significant range advantage over us. So I really don't get the check. It seems to be a very trappy one. I think pretty standard check back on the flop and turn. And on the right hand table, checked around, I'm betting the Queen 8 for value and protection. I just think I have the best hand pretty often, and then we're checking back. Wow. It seems like a very bad 3-bet. With 3s and 10s versus an under the gun open. Versus almost any open, really, I don't really like the 3-bet. I think I considered 3-betting this ace high suited rundown. It's a hand that plays a little bit better heads up with the lower rundowns. But the ace high suit kind of makes up for it, and for that reason I decided to call in this spot. I don't really have any reads or anything on any of the players on this table at this instance. Pair and an open-ender, pretty standard call on the flop in position. On the river on the right, I'm considering calling because 9-10 missed, 6-9-10 misses, spades miss. And while I hold the 10 of spades, it's pretty close, I think. when the pre-flop raiser checks the flop, then calls the turn bet. It seems like a strange line to be taking with an overpair. That said, we have like kind of the... I think I would have preferred to call there. Yeah. Hit on the turn bet, and then I think potting on the river is the way to go. And let me just rewind for a second. Yeah, I think betting pot on the river is good. We have a very polarized range on the river, especially when the ace hits. I don't think he's going to be too price sensitive, meaning that if we bet 2/3 pot versus pot, I think his calling frequency is going to be pretty similar, and so I'm trying to extract the maximum I can with this hand. Because whatever he has is effectively a bluff catcher. Yeah, I think the hand on the right with the queen eight should be a call on the river as played, just because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be playing an overpair from the pre-flop raiser that way. And considered 3-betting the hand on the left, table 1, but elected to just flat. Either one I think is fine. And we can see he looked us up with a set of sixes. Bottom 2 in a 4-way flop, when the flop is ace high, isn't that great of a hand. Table 2 seems to be a very loose player, and so I elect to 3-bet a similar hand to what I had flatted on the button when we had made our straight. And the difference here is, A, this player looks significantly looser, and B, I want to play it heads up with him much more so in this spot because I don't have the button or cutoff position in this hand, and so I basically want to drive players out behind me to clean them up and get the pot heads up in this spot. Table on the left is right around the border of a middle position open with the king, jack, queen, 7 single suited. On the right, could go either way. Could bet, but it just kind of sucks because you can't bet fold and you're getting it in pretty bad when he does check shove. And also the benefit of checking this flop back, like even with such a loose player, it should hit his opening range quite a bit, even if it's like queen 9, he's going to be continuing with that or better. So I like to check. We also conceal our strength when we do hit a flush. We never get credit for it, and we're almost always getting paid when they have something. King on the river, yeah, we need to be bluffing here if we get check 2, and it looks like I do. On the left, we open, and then this player on a shorter stack limp re-raise ace jack jack double suited, which I think is a pretty decent play with the shorter stack. On the right, yeah, we're betting a third pot more or less, and I don't think we need to be bluffing that much more. I think if you're sizing bigger in that type of spot, you're basically burning money. Your value bets and bluffs there should be smaller in general. Make an open with decent, not great ace high suited hand. Flop not so well, but elect to c-bet here, holding, basically blocker to top 2 and holding a jack blocker to straight. Just think we take it down often enough holding those relevant cards, and we do. Table on the right, normally this would be a check call for me, but this player over a small sample looks to be incredibly tight, 15-9, and I just don't think he's going to be fighting back or playing anything but ABC and straightforward, so I just lead and take it down on the flop there. Which brings up a point about adjusting to your opponents. So that's a spot. Another spot that you can look to change up and make exploitative plays is when deciding on opening ranges from the button. Basically, if people are under defending their blinds, you can open wider, and when they are defending at a proper frequency, open a little tighter, especially if they're good players. Flop a decent wrap on the right-hand table. Could go either way. Could check this back or could bet. Decide to bet in this spot. Table on the left, we check back a queen, queen, 4 flush draw flop, not holding too many relevant blockers to anything. As well, small blind flatting range will have a lot of queen X in it. And so we just give up in that spot. Small blind bets the turn and takes it down. Nice turn for us on the right. Looks like the big blind is thinking about a bet. Yeah. So, yeah, we have two options. We can flat or just shove right here with the nuts and a redraw. I'd prefer to just shove it in here because the board is so dynamic and we lose action on bad rivers, possibly. And we also, when the nuts change on the river, may not know exactly where we stand. So if the river brought the, ace or any spade, something like that, and we're facing a bet, it kind of sucks. And while I don't think he's got a bet calling range here that isn't 8-9, like it wouldn't make any sense for him to play jacks or tens this way. I just want to get the money in. The pot is pretty sizable at this point after he leads out. And again, if he has 8-9, we have a decent free roll on it. So yeah, we shove, or effectively shove. And he folds. Defend some bad kings, and after a bet and a call, it's just fairly likely somebody has a 9, and we're drawing the 2 outs, and we just fold our kings. Open pretty good queens in the cutoff. Pretty standard, and a super standard call of the 3-bet. Don't flop a whole lot. Gut shot, but no hearts. No heart blockers, rather. And facing, pretty, I guess, standard-ish sizing for a c-bet on this kind of board. I think we just need to be folding. He doesn't seem to be terribly loose and aggressive. Against some selection of players, you can choose to peel one there, I think, but as a standard, I would choose to just fold. The spot on the left, so again, against a lot of players that I have a hand sample on, these kings would be a 4-bet at 100 big blinds, blind versus blind. They're not super playable, but they push quite a bit of equity against which should be around a 15+% 3-betting range. In this spot, I don't have too many reads. He seems to be tighter-ish over a very small sample. So I choose, I guess, the more conservative route and just decide to call. On the flop, the problem with calling here, I think, is even if he was 3-betting some random rundown stuff, he's now got quite a bit of equity on this flop, if not the nuts or, set of 9s, queens, something like that. And so I think this should just, I'm glad I made a fold in this spot. It looked like I was ready to click check call, but I think we're just up against 2 pair plus so often against a normal-ish 3-betting range in that kind of flop. I could be wrong though. On the left, we're just going to check our option in this spot. Fold bad tens on the right. Facing a min bet with top pair. No reason to do anything but call. Improve to trips, and we'll be calling again. It gets interesting if we're facing a river bet here. I don't imagine I'd be folding, but it'd be, yeah, it'd be a pretty tough spot to think we're good. Yeah, and so he leads for just about 70% pot, which screams a lot of value. We end up, yeah, we're kind of at the very, I guess ace king would be more at the top of our range in that spot. But blind versus blind, I don't hate the call, though. I think it's pretty marginal break even. 3-bet, good double suited queens on the right. On a board we smash pretty well. The problem, not problem, but I'm not expecting him to be stabbing too often on this board because we have 2 queens. We have a bunch of blocks to the straight draws and the good flush draws. But to protect our range, I think it's a decent play. On the left, we make an open under the gun, c-bet, and get check raised. Nothing we're going to do here but fold. I like to size smallish on the turn on the right. Basically hoping to get calls from some 2 pairs and 7-8 that would be very likely to check the flop without any sort of flush draw or pair backups or anything like that. On the river now, I think sizing bigger is better. Because a 7-8 or something that calls us on the turn may still not believe us, and I think betting 40% again on the river, while might increase his calling frequency a little bit, probably doesn't increase it to the extent that we would need to make that a more profitable bet size than the biggish size. I could be wrong though. And if you guys have any sort of comments or questions, I'd love to get a discussion going in the comment section of the video. So if some hands stand out to you or anything like that, please let me know and we can discuss them openly. Take a stab on the flop with the double gutter. On the turn, decided to check back. I just don't think, because we hold tens, he doesn't have too many straight draws himself. And by him calling 1 street, I think he's very likely to be calling a second. And I like to just take my free cards on the turn, miss them on the river, and just fold to his bet. Two hands that are super standard opens from these positions. I like this check with the ace-ace-4 on a board that we shouldn't really connect with too often. While we don't hit it super strong, we have a blocker to the to the nuts right now. We don't want to bet and get raised here, and I think by checking overall, the majority of flops like this, when we're the pre-flop raiser, we protect our range quite a bit. The turn for sure helps his range far more than ours, but I think we still need to be calling here. We have a wheel draw. We also hold the ace of diamonds, so we can potentially bluff river diamonds, either by check raising or leading out. He checks back the 3, which seems pretty bad for whatever he had. I guess he rivered 2 pair. I may, if I'm in his spot, still... No, probably not bluffing, actually, with decent 2 pair to be showing down. I think I'm making an exploitable c-bet in this spot. On the left, this would be normally a spot that I'm just checking with the majority of my range, I think. We get called. We turn pretty much the chin turn for us. But I think checking here is a good idea, just to kind of protect our turn checking range. And I guess because he's short a sec, we can consider a shove. Though I think this is going to still play better and show better profit by check calling and letting him continue to bluff. And I guess when he does have a set or a straight, we lose the minimum. Yeah, in this spot, we're at the absolute top of our range here, and nothing else to do but call. And he flopped it straight. But I think, given the flop c-bet, which I wouldn't normally do myself or suggest you do either, I think we played the hand on the turn and river pretty perfectly. The hand on the left, the 7-8-9-3 suited, I think a lot of players see that and decide it's an open on the button, which I think is a mistake. Unless players are really, really overfolding their blinds. It's a hand, because of the 3 is just killing so much equity of that hand, that you're probably not showing a profit with it, opening it from the button. I'm letting my stack go down a little bit on the table on the left, just basically not reloading on purpose, just to play a shorter stack in a zoom pool that seems to be more or less fully stacked. And from that, we're gaining quite a bit of an advantage. Yeah, we just see massive stacks everywhere. I think I recorded this session a bit later on after primetime action, and so maybe the tables weren't loading nearly as fast as it would in like a 80-person player pool or something like that. So apologies for that if some of the tables' hands are loading a little bit slower than you're accustomed to. I'd probably fold the hand on the left if the button pot opened, but given the extra discounted price, I think we're fine with just check calling there, or defending our big blind there. Facing a c-bet, Yeah, I think this is a decent spot to be check raising, holding the 8 and the 4 blockers to straight draws that he can have. I think the button's range in general is going to be weak and is going to be over c-betting in general on ace-high flops. And we certainly can rep wraps in a7 and things like that. So our range when we check raise is still protected. On the turn, we improve basically to blocking top 2. And I think given we check raise, we need to be following through on the turn. We do, and take it down. On the table on the right, we defend in the small blind. I think this is a good spot to be leading a lot, especially with this particular hand. I believe I saw the stats on Play It Smart and saw that he seems to like to c-bet a whole lot, and so decided to check. But in general, yeah, I would be leading this hand out quite a bit from the small blind. It's a board that won't get c-bet a whole lot because it's so dynamic and connects with especially a small blind defending range. That said, a pre-flop raiser should have enough to be continuing on that board, and so I want to be getting value in a spot like that. And so I know I'd mentioned the 7-8-9 3 hand earlier and thinking it was a little too weak. The Jack 8-10 deuce suited is probably right on the border of what I would consider opening on the button. And obviously if your dangler is a little bit higher, you know, it's a 5 connected to the 8 or the 4 connected to the 8, it improves the equity of the hand considerably for PLO at least, you know, percent or 2. Defend the pretty iffy hands on both tables, but I think pretty standard defense. Table on the left, I think you can consider check raising the flop if under the gun c-bets. King on the turn really helps his range and decreases the strength of our range on the turn. So compared to his, and so we just check fold. I think stabbing there would be a little too spewy. Open in the small blind on the left, pretty bad flop. Mid pair, but on a super dynamic board. Backdoor spades, but I don't think it's enough to be check calling out of position, and we fold. Pretty decent hand on the right, but one I would prefer to just be flatting with to the button open. Given that small blind 3-bets now, though, we just have a very easy fold. 3-bet the good connected jacks. This also plays fine as a call, but I think we're pushing some equity against the cutoff's opening range, and we have ourselves a very playable hand. Seven 7-3 flop, I think c-betting would be kind of standard, and c-betting smallish is the way to go. Interesting on the turn here. We turn the super nutty draw, and he leads out for half pot. So this is an advantage in playing the shorter stack. I think we can be shoving here, whereas if we had a full stack, we kind of couldn't. And so the advantage here in shoving, the times he doesn't have a 7 and has some other draw himself, we're pushing a ton of equity with the rest of the money. Whereas we don't really get to extract that value when we have a fuller stack. And the reason for shoving instead of calling is we're not going to fold a ton of rivers anyway. So I just want to get the money in now in the case that I am ahead. And as we saw, we were massively ahead. And I think his flop peel is pretty ambitious, especially against me having a shorter stack. And he's just not going to have as much fold equity against a shorter stack as he would against someone playing with a 100 BB stack there. Pretty standard open on the table on the right, and looks like I'm just deciding on my bet sizing here. Yeah, I think around anything between 40 to 60% is, or between 30 and 60% is probably fine on a board like this. He check raises small, and I assume I'm just going to let this one go. Yeah. Yeah, the 10s on the left was a pretty standard defend, closing the action. Don't flop anything against under the gun open and two other callers behind him, and just check folding there. These queens, if they're suited, I'm opening them under the gun. I think it's still, yeah, it's probably still correct to be opening them. Might have been a little too tight folding that under the gun. Though in general, I guess it brings up a point I want to mention. Players, I think, might be playing a little too loose with their opening ranges from under the gun. And if you're in doubt of whether you are playing too loose from under the gun with certain types of hands, you can probably elect to fold them instead of opening them. Flop the nuts, and going to start out with, again, a similar size bet to when we see bet the 7s on the ace-ace board. Make a better full house on the turn, and here I think I'm going to start sizing up. Yeah, looks like I am. And I would suggest that in general, I guess the bluffs that I would have in this spot may be like a 4x or 5x. Uh, 100 big blinds deep. I decided to flatten the small blind with the suited aces. They're not the greatest suited aces. And yeah, 3-betting, I don't really like to 3-bet these types of aces from the small blind or the big blind for that matter. They just don't, they play pretty poorly, and by flatting some of your aces out of position when you do flop ace XX, you don't get credit, and so when somebody does end up having something, you get paid off quite a bit. Pretty standard defend and check call on the flop on the table on the left. Gonna check the turn again. River is a little interesting. I guess we can choose to bluff with our pair of jacks to holding blocks to the straight, but the problem I think with that is we have a lot of showdown value here, and I guess from a game theory perspective, if we're bluffing with this hand in this spot, we're probably over bluffing. And I would actually choose, if we checked in face a bet from this player, to then turn our hand into a bluff. But I think leading out here would just cause us to be over bluffing in this spot, and I just think we're good very often when it goes on the river. We're good quite often, and if we want to bluff with that hand, we can choose to do it the times that he bets flop, checks turn, and then decides to bet that river rather than leading it ourselves. So I think that's gonna do it for this video. If you guys have any questions or comments on any of the hands or anything else you've seen in this video, please let me know in the comments section. Look forward to having a discussion about whatever you want in regards to this video, or maybe something else. You probably maybe have seen me take some lines and perhaps bet sizings that are different than our standard or that you would use yourself. And I hope you found it interesting. If nothing else, if you don't think it's correct, then if nothing else, then to just kind of show you a different perspective and see how you can be a little more creative in your PLO game. So yeah, look forward to any comments or questions, and I'll see you guys next time with part 3 of this series. Take care.